Whispers by the Lake. The small town of Evershore had always been a quiet place, nestled between gentle hills and a shimmering lake that mirrored the sky. Every evening, the sunset spilled its colors over the water like a painter's brush, turning the lake into a canvas of gold and rose. It was there, by the lake, that Evelyn first saw Daniel. Evelyn had moved to Evershore to escape the chaos of the city, renting a little cottage with ivy climbing its walls. She worked as a writer, often bringing her notebook to the lakeshore in search of inspiration. Daniel, on the other hand, had lived in Evershore all his life. He ran the old boathouse with his father, fixing wooden boats with hands that were rough from years of work but gentle in the way they handled even the smallest task. Their first conversation was simple. Evelyn had been struggling to open a stubborn jar of paint, and Daniel, passing by with a toolbox, offered to help. His smile was warm, his voice calm, and when he handed the jar back, their fingers brushed for a brief second, long enough for her heart to skip. After that, they saw each other often. Daniel would wave from the boathouse when Evelyn walked by, and sometimes he would bring her fresh coffee from the little cafe in town. In return, Evelyn began leaving small gifts on the boathouse steps, homemade cookies, a handwritten poem, a sketch of the lake at dawn. One evening, just before the first snow of winter, Daniel invited her for a boat ride. The lake was still, the air crisp, and the distant mountains were dusted with white. They didn't talk much at first, letting the soft creak of the oars fill the silence. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been here my whole life," he said, "but it feels different now, warmer somehow. I think it's because of you." Evelyn's heart swelled at the words. She wanted to reply, but instead she reached for his hand, holding it tight as the boat drifted across the glowing water. Winter came, and with it, a quiet kind of magic. They spent snowy mornings drinking tea by the fireplace in Evelyn's cottage, afternoons walking through frost-covered fields, and evenings telling stories under blankets. Daniel would sometimes read the pages Evelyn wrote, and she would tease him for the way he frowned in concentration. Spring arrived slowly, and on the first day the cherry blossoms bloomed along the lakeshore, Daniel brought Evelyn back to the spot where they had first met. He was holding something behind his back, a small, carved wooden box. Inside was a silver necklace shaped like a tiny boat, delicate and simple. "For the woman who changed the way I see my home, and my life," he said. Evelyn smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She fastened the necklace around her neck and kissed him as the blossoms fell around them like soft pink snow. From then on, they were inseparable. Seasons passed, and each one brought a new chapter to their love. The lake, which had once been just a peaceful view, became the witness to their story, a place of first words, first laughter, first promises. Years later, as they sat together on the same bench where she had first seen him, Evelyn turned to Daniel and said, "This lake has seen us from the start. Maybe it'll see us until the end." Daniel smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "Then let's give it a lifetime of memories." And so, under the endless sky and beside the water that had brought them together, they kept writing their love story, one sunset, one season, one heartbeat at a time. Whispers beneath the lantern sky. The night market in Hoyen glowed like a river of stars. Lanterns in every shade of red, yellow, and violet floated gently above the crowd, their light spilling across the wooden stalls and winding streets. The air carried the scent of grilled corn, jasmine tea, and the faint sweetness of lotus flowers. Mai walked slowly along the edge of the Thursday Bon River, her fingers brushing the cool wooden railing. She was an artist, and her sketchbook, already smudged with charcoal, hung at her side. She came here every month, hoping to capture the fleeting beauty of the market's light. Yet, tonight, her heart wasn't focused on drawing. She was searching for something, though she couldn't name it. At the far end of the pier, a man in a dark blue shirt knelt beside a basket of paper lanterns. He was carefully placing them into the water, whispering something before letting each one drift away. She stopped a few meters away, watching. His movements were deliberate, almost poetic. "You're making a wish?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible over the laughter and chatter around them. He looked up, startled at first, then smiled. Not a wish. A promise. Mai tilted her head. What kind of promise? He stood, brushing his hands on his trousers. One I can't tell strangers. Then maybe I shouldn't be a stranger, she said, surprising herself with her own boldness. He laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. Liam, he said, extending his hand. His accent wasn't local, there was a smoothness to his Vietnamese, but a hint of something foreign underneath. Mai. That was how it began. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed again and again. Sometimes it was by accident, bumping into each other at the coffee stall near the bridge. Other times, it was intentional, meeting at dusk to walk by the river or sit on the rooftop cafe where the lanterns looked like a floating constellation. Liam was a photographer from Ireland, traveling Asia for a year. He told stories through his lens, the wrinkled smile of an old boatman, the vibrant blue of fishing nets drying in the sun, the quiet dignity of a street vendor preparing pho before dawn. Mai shared her own art. Sketches of old houses leaning toward each other like gossiping friends, paintings of the market's chaotic beauty. One night, under a canopy of lanterns, Liam said, "You see the world in lines and curves. I see it in light and shadow. But maybe we're chasing the same thing." She smiled. Beauty? No. Truth. But the truth was also bittersweet. Liam's visa would expire in 2 months. He didn't hide it, neither of them did. Yet they kept meeting, kept talking, kept creating. They went on a small trip to the countryside, riding bicycles through rice paddies, stopping to rest beneath tamarind trees. She painted while he took photos. They spoke less and less in words and more through glances, through shared silences. One evening, as they floated paper lanterns down the river, Liam handed her a folded photo. It was of her, sitting on the pier weeks ago, her hair caught in the wind, her gaze fixed on the glowing water. "I took this the first night we met," he said. "Before I knew your name." She traced the edges of the photograph with her fingers. "And what promise were you making that night?" His voice was low. "That I wouldn't leave without telling you how much you've changed me." Her chest tightened. The air seemed thick with all the words they hadn't yet spoken. On his last night in Hoi An, the Lantern Festival was brighter than ever. Crowds filled the streets, music floated from every corner. Yet, to Mai, the world felt quiet. They stood at the same spot by the river where they first met. He took her hands. "I wish I could stay." She blinked away the sting in her eyes. "And I wish I could follow you." They kissed, soft, lingering, like a memory being written in real time. Around them, hundreds of lanterns drifted across the water, carrying silent wishes into the dark. When he left the next morning, he didn't say goodbye. He said, "See you in another light." Months later, in her tiny studio, Mai hung a new painting on the wall. It was of the Thursday Bon River, lanterns floating across it like little beating hearts. And at the far edge of the canvas, almost hidden, was the figure of a man in a dark blue shirt, placing one more lantern into the water. Her phone buzzed. A message. From Liam. "I found a ticket back to Vietnam. Keep a lantern ready for me." Beneath the lantern sky. It was late autumn in the small riverside town of Evermere. The days grew shorter, and the night air carried a crisp chill that hinted at the coming winter. The marketplace was quiet now, its cobblestone streets washed in golden lamplight. Down by the river, paper lanterns swayed gently, their reflections dancing on the water. Isla sat on the wooden pier, her legs dangling above the calm current. She was a teacher at the local school, known for her soft smile and her habit of carrying a notebook everywhere. Tonight, she was sketching the lanterns, or at least pretending to. Her mind wandered elsewhere, to someone she hadn't seen in 5 long years. That someone was Elias, the boy who used to race her to the old oak tree every morning before class. The boy who once promised, under the lantern sky, that he would return for her. And he did return, only not in the way she imagined. A sudden breeze rustled the lanterns, and Isla felt a presence beside her. She turned, and there he was, older, taller, dressed in a worn navy coat, but his eyes, those warm, steady eyes were exactly the same. "Isla," he said, his voice low, as though afraid she might vanish if he spoke too loudly. She stared at him for a moment, as if her mind needed time to believe what her eyes saw. "Elias. I thought," her voice faltered. "I know," he said, sitting beside her. "I thought I'd be gone for a year. But life had other plans." Elias told her about the years he spent traveling for work, about nights in strange cities where he'd carry her letters in his coat pocket, reading them over and over until the paper softened at the edges. "And yet you never wrote back," Isla whispered. He looked at her, guilt flickering in his gaze. "I wanted to. But I was afraid. Afraid that if I wrote, I'd only be reminding you of someone who might never return." They sat in silence, listening to the soft lapping of the water. Above them, the lanterns swayed like tiny golden moons. "I still came here every year," she said quietly. "On the night of the Lantern Festival. Just in case." Elias reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a folded slip of paper, worn and faded. He opened it to reveal the drawing she had made for him years ago, 2 children sitting under a tree, the sky above filled with lanterns. "I carried this everywhere," he said. "It was my way home." The air between them was warm now, not from the autumn night but from the weight of all the unspoken words. Finally, Elias took her hand, his fingers trembling slightly. "Isla, I don't know how much time I lost, but I know I don't want to lose any more." She looked at him, her eyes shining in the lantern light. "Then don't." And under the lantern sky, the same sky that had once watched them as children, they leaned closer, the years between them melting into nothing. The river kept flowing. The lanterns kept swaying. And somewhere deep in the heart of Evermere, a promise that had waited half a decade was finally kept.